How's it going, everyone? My name is Carpo, and I'm making this video regarding bullies. Now, I'm going to try to think through what I'm going to say here rather than rush through and ramble like I often do in my videos. I usually talk about what's off the top of my head, which I will be here as well, but I have a message that I'd like to share, so it's not just a ramble, but a serious message, rather, to bullies and to those who have been bullied. It's not something that I talk about much because it's been so overplayed. You know, the idea of being picked on, we've become so PC that it's reflected in us becoming offended by the stupidest things that people say. You have to have very thick skin in order to argue or debate about politics, religion, but you also have to have thick skin to even discuss something that you feel strongly about that someone else doesn't believe or doesn't agree with, whatever it might be. I'm making this video during a time when I don't have any issues going on with anyone picking on me, and of course I never pick on other people either. I make it a point to never bully people. I never pick on them and try to find ways to pick at their armor or poke at them. And I'll tell you that I can be honest that I haven't always been that way. Even within the last 5 years on YouTube, when I first got on YouTube, I wasn't quite ready for the berating insults and the amount of ignorance and trolling and hatred that I would get from people who are just looking for a rise out of folks. For a while I felt that that's how just people were, that there were a lot of them out there. But I understand now that it's only a certain group who are attracted to these types of behaviors. But bullying itself, in any way, shape, or form, is something that needs to be taken very seriously by all of us. And I'm not talking about turning people in, although that may be an option for some people. But rather, it's easy to just say, you know, someone could say bullies are just jerks. Sure. But we know that it stems from a psychological condition. Many of the behavioral traits that people share, that large groups of people share, such as, say, distrust in general, this can be caused by being let down at one time in their life, or being deluded, or, seeing what they believed wasn't necessarily true, or that they've been lied to. This can cause distrust. A husband or a wife who divorces you and takes everything you have, this can cause distrust, but it can also cause hatred towards men or women. So this can cause sexism and bullying in that way. I've talked to men who their wives left them, and so they think that women are all horrible and that they're all out to get money, which is a ludicrous claim, of course. You know, I know plenty of women who don't desire wealth, but I think all of us want to feel like we're succeeding and doing well, so it's a matter of working together in a relationship. So my wife and I work together. I know my faults, and she'll pick at me if she needs to, and I'll pick at her if I need to, which I rarely do because she's pretty much perfect. And I have plenty of mistakes that I make and things that I need to change all the time, little things, and I notice things that maybe others aren't aware of, but they'll notice things that I'm not aware of. And when somebody tells me, hey, you need to change this, or you should look into this, I will listen. But if it's in a bullying way, and this happens a lot online, a person will say, point out something to somebody and say, you should do this, or you need to do this because you're an idiot if you don't, or, that's all about the context and the way that we treat one another. And I don't get bullied myself. I get maybe harassed or trolled once in a while, and it was more in the past, and I know why. It's because I fed into it, and because there were certain controversial subjects. For example, if I made a video that had anything to do with the Illuminati, New World Order, Freemasons, mystery schools, ancient teachings, the occult knowledge, which I was, into for a long time, that will attract people who are, say, Christians. When I made occult videos, I would get Christians who would come and attack me and saying that I'm a Satanist and that I'm going to hell and this and that. And then also, if I make political videos explaining my position on one subject, that will get people who are on the other side who will also harass. But it's not in a bullying sense. Because here's the thing, bullying takes a victim. And if you're not a victim, you can't be bullied. And I've learned how to handle myself in the world when it comes to talking with people. Although I'm still learning how to properly convey my message without offending anyone and without using any fallacies. The one thing I have been able to obtain is the ability to not harbor resentment or anger towards people. I'd had trolls and haters in the past years ago that I would think about them like the next day, like, what an asshole, why would he say that? And just have to formulate a response. That helped me grow. Now I just don't give a shit. I'll still respond to a person, whether it's online or in person, but I don't feel the need to prove that I'm right. That's a huge issue. Now, I think we should poke down and corner that issue of being right, because usually it's not so black and white. We're often partially right, and the person that we're debating with or talking with is partially right. This happens more often than not. There are very few things that are so cut and dry, and the reason I say that is because if they are that cut and dry and black and white or obvious, then they're seldom argued about. In other words, a person may say, well, you know, two people might argue over whether the sky's blue or not, but they wouldn't be arguing because there's consensus on that. The issues that we do debate on are ones that we haven't resolved, and we have to remember that. If half of the country believes one thing and half the country believes another, then for anyone to think that they're right and that all the other people are wrong, it's ludicrous. But there are even like 1% type people. Take the people who run the show, the people with the money, you know, the 1% financially, a lot of them feel like they're entitled. That's the right way to go about business, the way they're going about it, because it works for them, whereas it's not working for 90% of the people. In the same regards, if a group of people have found a way to bully their way in to abusing others for profit, which is often what it is, it becomes a whole new form of bullying. See, sometimes we get bullied because we don't agree with someone. Or it could be because deep down inside they feel they're not adequate and they will project that onto the world. And I can say that I really believe that a majority of the bullies out there have feelings of inadequacy inside, which cause them to lash out at other people. And these are the bullies who are just picking on others for what they think or how they look or dress. If you're bullying someone for their opinions, then you may at least have a point for arguing, but not for bullying. But when it gets into the shallow issues like looks, race, while religion is a choice, race isn't. So when people make racial comments to someone, or, and no race is innocent now. The whites are the barbarians now. We're the ones who have been considered to, abuse the natives and the blacks and the Mexicans, and meanwhile we're all just people. But there are so many people who bully others because they feel they're superior. Men have always bullied women because they think that the man of the house should be able to make the decisions, and that required bullying for a lot of men. Here's what I found is that the men who have to abuse in order to have control are men that don't have the proper maturity or understanding or growth in life to be a good person and earn respect through their actions, not through their abuse. Now, there's an exception of sociopaths and small groups of people who are out to make profit by bullying people, and that's not what I'm talking about. These are the people who are using bullying to force others out of their positions and doing it damn well knowing what they're doing. And this would be like a large company bullying smaller businesses into selling to them, or bullying another business out of town, or bullying a black family out of the neighborhood, that kind of thing. It doesn't even require physical bullying a lot of the time. It's just, harassment or the intention to harass someone. But when it comes to racial bullying or sex bullying, men or women, then it's become to the shallowest level it can possibly be. You know, just saying the mere line, "Oh, men are this way" or "women are this way," it's just beyond ridiculous. There are so many different types of people out there, and they all have their own attributes, men or women. You know, you know what I'm saying. We're all just people, right? So for the bullies out there who do bully people, I can say that I believe that they have a bit of an inner turmoil going on where they feel like perhaps, and maybe I could hear a bully's perspective if there's one out there, that it may be a feeling of inadequacy or not recognized in life for being who they want to be recognized for. So bullying allows them to, you know, kind of prove themselves. Or sometimes a kid may be raised in an environment where they get everything they want and they bully their parents. Having 2 young kids, I know what it's like to be bullied. The only people that bully me are my own kids, and I don't put up with it. I will to an extent, but I'm teaching them how to never bully, you know. But a lot of parents, I've watched parents who have their kids just beat the shit out of them, metaphorically, or literally sometimes, but usually metaphorically. You know, people that I know who had, say this, I guess I shouldn't bring up specifics because my family and friends watch this. So we'll just say that some people grow up with a bad attitude because their parents didn't properly raise them, in the sense of they were the cool parents. The cool parents that let everybody come over, or maybe didn't really put up a lot of rules or regulations, and they wanted to do that because they wanted their kid to be a friend, because they were afraid that if they put rules and regulations and grounded the kids, that their kid wouldn't be their friend. They'd feel like they're bullying their child. And perhaps it was a parent who was bullied themselves, so they don't want to make the same mistake. But then the child will sometimes grow up treading on their parents, and when they get out into the world, they tread on everyone else, and the parent creates the bully. And life behaviors that we have, they're very hard to change. And I'm finding as I get older that, I guess when I was younger, there wasn't a lot I was trying to change. And that's kind of what it is. I never really put in the effort to say, I want to be this kind of person. I didn't know what I wanted to be, or who I wanted to be. I just wanted to be happy. And that's success to me. But over time, I said, there are various paths to success, and there are various paths to happiness. They're not always one and the same, but if success is happiness, then they are one and the same. But there's also a yearning for something greater, so we all want to have a good life, and I feel like sometimes folks who feel trapped tend to bully others because they feel like they're not getting enough. They're jealous. Jealousy creates bullying. I don't want to make it even relate to anything religious, but that's one of the things about the Bible that I always laughed about. The 10 Commandments are so, for the most part, some of them anyway, are just obvious human traits that we would know better. Like, you shouldn't covet your neighbor's wife or goods, and you shouldn't be jealous, and you shouldn't steal or kill. But like George Carlin had the greatest outlook on the Bible. You know, he's like, condense it down to like what? I think it was one commandment: be a good person. You know, or maybe it was 3. I don't remember. But analyzing what humans think of as a good person is very important. Looking back at history to what the philosophers said about us, about what they found. People who spent in lifetimes pondering and watching people and their behaviors and seeing what they can write about and understand for thousands of years. And we have all these documentations of different types of people. And back then, there was a lot more time to people watch. Not so much time now because people are doing their own thing. There's still plenty of socialization, but society is changing so fast right now that we're unable to keep up emotionally with the technology that we're creating. So physically and mentally, we're incapable of keeping up with ourselves. Therefore, we feel exhausted and lesser. And amidst this, we get lost as individuals, and we feel like we slip through the cracks. And this is when bullies can surface. Bullies will surface to make others feel lesser so they can feel superior. There are a lot of bullies out there. In politics, in religion, there are plenty of bully pastors that I've heard. The ones who go out, harassing people, harassing the troops, or, abortion clinics. The things that they say, they become psychopathic almost in their bullying. But it's like this passive-aggressive attitude where they try to hold back and saying, well, I hate you, you should die, you should go to hell, you're a piece of fucking shit. But I only say that because that's what my Bible tells me to believe. Or, your political views are stupid, you don't know what you're talking about, your candidate sucks, you're a moron, but that's just because that's what I believe. Because we're all often wrong about what we think is true. And the decisions we make are based on the best information that we have.